It is Friday, October 9th, 2020. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was a no jiu-jitsu, get your ass kicked out jiu-jitsu Friday. Unfortunately, I did not get into jiu-jitsu today. I'm very ashamed of this fact, but I will get in possibly tomorrow. I'll try and get into the morning class. But yeah, I was up to my ass in work, and it was like I just finished like maybe 15, maybe 20 minutes after I should have left for jiu-jitsu. So it's just like, I'm not going to go in there late. I'll try and go in there tomorrow. But yeah, I just really busy today, doing a lot of home project stuff, kind of falling a little bit behind, but at the same time catching up, because I don't know if you guys have noticed, I have been uploading more of my shows that I've previously recorded on my YouTube channel. So I'm trying to get a little more current with that. We tend to be a little bit ahead of the curve on this show, but it's doesn't really do you any good if you're getting it like while it's happening. You know what I mean? I want to try and prepare you a little bit. But anyway, so no jiu-jitsu today. I did do some mat work though. I have a little strip of mat that I roll out when I don't get to jiu-jitsu, when I'm supposed to get to jiu-jitsu. And so I did a little bit of rolling around on that. A lot of singles drills, a lot of across the mat drills, and just worked up a really good sweat. I feel pretty good. I think on average I'm doing about the same amount of work as I would do in, say, at least the warm-up of a normal jiu-jitsu class, if not just a teeny tiny more than that. I won't say that I burn the same amount of calories as being in class, because you always burn more calories when you're struggling against somebody else trying to like choke you and shit. So yeah. Anyway, got in some exercise, and I'm starting to feel a little bit better, as far as my legs go. I have all kinds of bruises and swellings and cuts and shit from fishing on the shoreline. It's a really treacherous time of year for us. If you don't have a boat, you're kind of stuck on the shoreline like I am at the moment. I'm thinking about getting a kayak to resolve that at some point. But anyway, just been walking around the shoreline, and of course you run into patches of mud and quick mud and mud and rocks and sharp rocks and round rocks and anyway, so I took a few headers, while out fishing, and so like my shins are all dinged up, and I got this big old gash in my left leg. And so getting back to jiu-jitsu at all has been kind of challenging in that alone. But today I did some I want to say it's duck walks, and that involves contacting with a part of my knee that I really injured the other day, or a couple weeks ago now. But anyway, I was contacting right on that spot, and so it was really like one of those things where I didn't want to do it because it hurt a lot. And so that's slowly healing up, and so I got that in, and just really tried to stretch it out a bit, and tried to at least see how much of it I could work, and so like doing shots, I'm not quite to doing shots yet, but I'm getting pretty close. I think like another week or two at my current rate, I'll be back to doing shots. But it's just because of the way that it contacts specifically on that spot on my knee, and it's like, ugh. I mean, I had this swelling down there. It looked like a second kneecap. Honestly, it was like, I know I don't want to drop right on that. That's gonna hurt. So yeah, healing up, and so it was one of those things where it was a confluence of events where just busting ass trying to get a lot of work done here and all that, unfortunately, jiu-jitsu had to take a minor back seat for the day. Possibly until Monday. I don't want to stretch it that far. I'd really like to get in tomorrow, but I'm not accustomed to getting up really early in the morning, so it might be a little tougher to get out. But I'll do my best. Hopefully I'll get in the early AM class, or I don't know, 10 AM isn't really like early, but it's early enough to be disconcerting at least. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music, and we're going to go with the body count. But what song? I haven't played this one in a while, and so here it goes. The Ski Mask Way. First Dance, here on Coin Metal. And that was White Zombie with Grease Paint and Monkeys. Or Monkey Brains, rather. And so, as far as what we're going to get into today, I was reading this one thing, and I think this is like keenly interesting, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with crypto. But I think it's kind of important to pay attention to, because the understanding has been that if we count existence as the duration of the existence of the universe, the assumption has been for a long time now that the Big Bang was the beginning, and here we are. And there was nothing really before the Big Bang, and like whatever there was, it's just like ineffable and invisible and non-existent, and it doesn't matter, right? And so I found this thing here. It's on YouTube, on news.yahoo.com. An earlier universe existed before the Big Bang and can still be observed today, says Nobel winner. And this is by Sarah Napton on the Telegraph, October 6, 2020. No penis. An earlier universe existed before the Big Bang and can still be observed today, Sir Roger Penrose has said, as he received the Nobel Prize for Physics. Sir Roger, 89, who won the honor for his seminal work proving that black holes do exist, said he had found 6, quote, warm points in the sky dubbed Hawking points, which are around 8 times the diameter of the moon. They are named after Professor Stephen Hawking, who theorized that black holes, quote, leak radiation and eventually evaporate away entirely. The timescale for the complete evaporation of a black hole is huge, perhaps longer than the age of our current universe, making them impossible to detect. However, Sir Roger believes that dead black holes from earlier universes or aeons are observable now. If true, it would prove Hawking's theories were correct. Sir Roger shared the World Prize in Physics with Professor Hawking in 1988 for their work on black holes. Speaking from his home in Oxford, Sir Roger said, quote, I claim that there is observation of Hawking radiation. The Big Bang was not the beginning. There was something before the Big Bang, and that something is what we will have in our future. Quote, we have a universe that expands and expands, and all mass decays away. And in this crazy theory of mine, that remote future becomes the Big Bang of another aeon. Quote, so if our Big Bang began with something which was the remote future of a previous aeon, and there would have been similar black holes evaporating away via Hawking evaporation, and they would produce these points in the sky that I call Hawking points. Wow, I don't know how that works. Quote, we are seeing them. These points are about 8 times the diameter of the moon and are slightly warmed up regions. There is pretty good evidence for at least 6 of these points. Sir Roger has recently published his theory of Hawking points in monthly notices of Royal Astronomical Society. The idea is controversial, although many scientists do believe that the universe operates in a perpetual cycle in which it expands before contracting back in a big crunch, followed by a new Big Bang. Sir Roger said that black holes had also once been controversial. They were first theorized by English country parson, John Mitchell in 1783, who speculated that if an object became so dense, its massive gravitational pull would stop even light escaping. But even Albert Einstein dismissed them as a mathematical curiosity rather than a physical reality. It was not until 1964, 9 years after Einstein's death, that Sir Roger proposed that black holes are an inevitable consequence of general relativity. Sir Roger proved that when objects become too dense, they suffer gravitational collapse to a point of infinite mass where all known laws of nature cease, called the singularity. His groundbreaking article is still regarded as the most important contribution to the theory of relativity since Einstein and increased evidence for the Big Bang. Sir Roger was in his mid-30s when he first stumbled upon the idea when walking to a tube station in London on his way to Birkbeck College. Now, 56 years later, he has finally been recognized for his work by the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences. Quote, "I think it's a bad thing to get a Nobel Prize too early. I know scientists who got their prize too early, and it spoiled their science. If you're going to get a Nobel Prize for science, it's good to get it in when you're good and old, before you're absolutely clapped out, when there is still something to do. That's my advice." This dates back to 1964, but the significance of black holes took a long time to realize. It's not surprising, and I think I'm just about old enough now. Sir Roger was awarded the honor alongside Professors Reinhard Gersel of the Max Planck Institute for Extraterrestrial Physics and Andrea Ghez of the University of California, who proved there is a supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way by studying its impact on the stars around it. Commenting on the prize, Professor Martin Rees, Astronomer Royal and Fellow of Trinity College, University of Cambridge, said it was sad that Professor Hawking had not been alive to share the prize. Quote, "Penrose is amazingly original and inventive, and has contributed creative insights for more than 60 years. There would, I think, be a consensus that Penrose and Hawking are the two individuals who have done more than anyone else since Einstein to deepen our knowledge of gravity." Sadly, this award was too much delayed to allow Hawking to share the credit with Penrose. Professor Hawking answered some of the biggest questions facing mankind back in 2018 below. Announcing the prize, Professor Göran Hansson, Secretary General of the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences, said this year's award was about the darkest secrets in the universe. Professor Toby Weissman, Professor of Theoretical Physics at Imperial College London, said, quote, "Penrose showed that if you believe Einstein, then black holes form under very general conditions, such as when certain stars die. They must be a physical reality." Well, I don't know. That's kind of like a I keep wanting to call that a solipsism, but I don't think that's it. You know, it's true because I said it's true, or because this is true, and yeah. kind of a false equivalency business. But anyway, I think this is kind of interesting, the idea that there is more quote-unquote universe out there than is currently visible to us as the latest expression of a quote-unquote Big Bang. And I don't know, I've always thought about it in terms of, it's like an explosion, but there's always something that escapes the gravitational pull of the suckback. It's like there'll be everything will get sucked back down until the center hits a critical mass and explodes outward again. And that's my feeling on it. That it's constantly in like a breathing cycle, And currently we're on an exhale, We went from an inhale, collapsed all the way down, had the Big Bang about 16 billion years ago. It expanded back out, but again, I believe that there's some matter, some detritus from the previous expression of the Big Bang on the outside. It was too far away to get sucked back to the middle. But that's just my feeling. I've always felt that there's more to the universe, and it seems like everything else expresses that way. Like a kind of like a light. Until the light bulb burns out, it's emitting photons, and that's bouncing off objects around you, and that's bouncing off the retinas in your eyes, and that's registering on your brain, and you have vision. But it's not possible without the transmission of those photons emitting from one point, bouncing off something else, and then bouncing off the retina of your eyes. That's just how vision works. And so I don't know. I've looked at lights while really, really high on acid, and it seemed to me that it wasn't like a constant. That it was just a constant series of explosions, but it wasn't just a constant like laser beam kind of beam. It's like I was seeing cascades of photons emitting from it. And so I think the universe is kind of like that. That it emits photons, in the shapes of solar systems and galaxies and all that other shit. And then it coalesces and it crushes together under its own gravity and expands again when it hits critical mass. There you have it. Anyway, so getting into crypto stuff. I got this thing here. It's on zerohedge.com, and we might actually find the actual source from it for this. Let's try that. Let's try that. Every once in a while I can find their... Oh, okay, so I guess this is for the BOJ. But anyway, so here we go. The circle is complete. BOJ joins Fed and ECB in preparing rollout of digital currency. And this is by Tyler Durden, and that's October 9th, 2020. And so here we go. First it was the Fed, then the ECB, and now the BOJ. The world's central banks are quietly preparing to unleash digital currencies on an unsuspecting population in one final last-ditch attempt to spark inflation and do away with the current monetary orthodoxy, which has failed to push living conditions for the masses higher, but most importantly has failed to inflate away a growing mountain of insurmountable global debt. On Friday, the Bank of Japan joined the Fed and ECB when it said it would begin experimenting on how to operate its own digital currency rather than confining itself to conceptual research as it has to date. Dude, just launch the fucking thing. Just do it. Get your fucking kid to do it. Continuing. Digitization has advanced in various areas at home and abroad on the back of rapid development of information communication technology. there is a possibility of a surge in public demand for central bank digital currency going forward, considering the rapid development of technological innovation. While the Bank of Japan currently has no plan to issue CBDC, from the viewpoint of ensuring the stability and efficiency of the overall payment and settlement systems, the bank considers it important to prepare thoroughly to respond to changes in circumstances in an appropriate manner. So they're probably preparing to receive and transact other people's CBDC as the market may determine, but it doesn't sound like they're terribly confident of it. Continuing, the bank explained that it might provide general purpose CBDC if cash in circulation drops, quote, significantly, and private digital money is not sufficient to substitute the functions of cash, while promising to supply physical cash as long as there is public demand for it. The move, as Reuters reports, came in tandem with an announcement by a group of 7 major central banks, including the BOJ, on what they see as core features of a central bank digital currency, such as resilience and a clear legal framework. I think we read that report the other day. It also falls in line with new Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga's focus on promoting digitization and administrative reform to boost the country's competitiveness. In a report laying out its research on CBDC, the BOJ said it will conduct a first phase of experiments on basic functions core to CBDCs, such as issuance and distribution, early in the fiscal year beginning in April 2021. The experiments will be part of the BOJ's efforts to look more closely into how it can issue general-purpose CBDCs intended to be used widely among the general public, including companies and households. Naturally, to avoid sparking a panic that paper money is on its way out, and thus prompt the population to hoard it, the BOJ said the CBDCs will complement, not replace cash, and focus on making payment and settlement systems more convenient. However, how exactly it is, quote, more convenient for the central bank to be able to remotely extinguish any amount of money to one's digital wallet without notice remains a mystery. Unlike the Fed, the BOJ plans to have financial institutions and other private entities serve as intermediaries between the central bank and end users, rather than have companies and households hold deposits directly with the BOJ. Quote, while the BOJ currently has no plan to issue CBDC, it's important to prepare thoroughly to respond to changes in circumstances, the report said. In a second phase of experiments, the BOJ will look at the potential design of CBDCs, such as whether it should set a limit on the amount issued and pay a remuneration on deposits. In other words, they want to know if they should have a total set limit to their coin issuance, and they're also looking at the possibility of staking. In the final step before issuance, the BOJ will launch a pilot program involving private firms and households, it said. The BOJ added that it would be desirable for the CBDC to be used not only for domestic but cross-border payments. In short, don't worry, this is just an experiment, but once operational, it will take over the entire existing monetary system. To be sure, having complete control over the entire monetary transmission mechanism, all the way to each quantum of currency in circulation, has been a central banker dream. A key reason for negative rates was for banks to force consumers to pull their money out of the bank and spend it, thus lifting the velocity of money. Alas, as we showed previously, the lowest interest rates in history merely prompted even more savings and less spending, resulting in catastrophic consequences for the financial sectors wherever negative rates were adopted, such as Japan and Europe. Until now, Japan had been cautious about moving too quickly on digital currencies, given the social disruptions it could cause in a country that has the world's most cash-loving population. But China's steady progress towards issuing digital currency has prompted the government to reconsider, especially if China takes the lead in sparking a new reflationary tide, once it converts its entire population to digital currency, and pledged in this year's policy platform to look more closely at the idea. Of course, the real reason behind central bank urgency to implement digital currencies is simple and has nothing to do with serving the population, increasing facility of transfers, or enhancing stability and efficiency of payment and settlement systems. It has everything to do with discrete control over inflation and enabling worldwide, quote, helicopter money. This is how double-line fixed income portfolio manager Bill Campbell described it in his latest must-read note, quote, the Pandora's box of central bank digital currencies. With QE, central banks have printed excess reserves that have benefited only the very wealthy and large institutions. The innovation of a digital currency system, as described by MasterCard, could deliver stimulus directly to consumers. Such a mechanism could open veritable floodgates of liquidity into the consumer economy and accelerate the rate of inflation. While central banks have been trying without success to increase inflation for the past decade, the temptation to put CBDCs into effect might be very strong among policymakers. However, CBDCs would not only inject liquidity into the economy, but could also accelerate the velocity of money. That 1-2 punch could bring about far more inflation than central bankers bargained for. When first implementing QE, central banks promised that this measure would be temporary and would be unwound after the crisis ended, a pledge that I have doubted for a while. Central banks, as we know, have perpetuated QE as part of their updated toolbox of monetary policies. The first use of digital currencies in monetary policy might start small as policymakers, out of caution, seek to calibrate this experiment in quasi-fiscal stimulus. However, such initial restraint could give way to growing complacency and greater use of the tool, just as we saw with QE. The temptations of CBDCs are not limited to excesses in monetary policy. CBDCs also appear to be an effective mechanism for bypassing the taxation, debt issuance, and spending prerogatives of government to implement a quasi-fiscal policy. Imagine, for example, the ease of enacting modern monetary theory via CBDCs. With CBDCs, the central banks would possess the necessary plumbing to directly deliver a digital currency to individuals' bank accounts, ready to be spent via debit cards. Unless, of course, the people on the other end of those exchanges don't want to accept the CBDCs as money. Continuing, let me quote again from Charles I, Plosner's warning in 2012. Once a central bank ventures into fiscal policy, it is likely to find itself under increasing pressure from the private sector, financial markets, or the government to use its balance sheet to substitute for other fiscal decisions. With the flick of the digital switch, CBDCs can enable policymakers to meet or cave into those demands at the risk of igniting an inflation conflagration, abandoning what little still survives of sovereign fiscal discipline, and who knows what else. I hope the leaders of the world central banks will approach this new financial technology with extreme caution, guarding against its overuse or outright abuse. It's hard to be optimistic. Soon our monetary Pandoras will possess their own box full of new powers, perhaps too enticing to resist. Here's another reason why it is hard to be optimistic. Without virtually any public discourse or debate, central banks are now so far down in the process that they are just steps away from rolling out a private sector venture with one of the largest digital payment processors in the world. Below is a press release that virtually nobody noticed in early September from none other than electronic payment giant MasterCard, in which it revealed that it had launched, quote, central bank digital currencies testing platform, enabling central banks to assess and explore national digital currencies. Quote, with the global economy racing to embrace digital payments, central banks are also looking to the future and investigating how to support innovation while maintaining monetary policy and financial stability as they issue and distribute currency. In fact, 80% of central banks surveyed are engaging in some form of central bank digital currency work, and about 40% of central banks have progressed from conceptual research to experimenting with concept and design, according to a recent survey by the Bank for International Settlements. Today, MasterCard announced a proprietary virtual testing environment for central banks to evaluate CBDC use cases. The platform enables the simulation of issuance, distribution, and exchange of CBDCs between banks, financial service providers, and consumers. Central banks, commercial banks, and tech and advisory firms are invited to partner with MasterCard to assess CBDC tech designs, validate use cases, and evaluate interoperability with existing payment rails available for consumers and businesses today. MasterCard is a leader in operating multiple payment rails and convening partners to ensure a level playing field for everyone, from banks to businesses to mobile network operators, in order to bring the most people possible into the digital economy. MasterCard wants to harness its expertise to enable the practical, safe, and secure development of digital currencies. Yeah, they're trying to step out in front of everybody, and they're going to get run over by Dogecoin. Quote, central banks have accelerated their exploration of digital currencies with a variety of objectives, from fostering financial inclusion to modernizing the payments ecosystem, said Raj Damodaran, my apologies there, sir, Executive Vice President, Digital Asset and Blockchain Products and Partnerships. MasterCard is driving innovation with the public sector, banks, fintechs, and advisory firms in the exploration of CBDCs, working with partners that are aligned to our core values and principles. This new platform supports central banks as they make decisions and now and in the future about the path forward for local and regional economies. Damodaran said. Sheila Warren, head of blockchain, digital assets, and data policy at the World Economic Forum, said, quote, collaborations between the public and private sectors in the exploration of CBDCs can help central banks better understand the range of technology possibilities and capabilities available with respect to CBDCs. Central banks can benefit from support in exploring the options set available to them with respect to CBDCs, as well as gaining insight into what opportunities may be forthcoming. Finally, why are central banks using blockchain as the backbone for all digital currency efforts? It has nothing to do with their fascination with Bitcoin or their fear that cryptocurrencies can become dominant, although there certainly is an element of that. The real reason is that blockchain allows every single discrete currency unit, whether it is the digital dollar, digital euro, digital yen, digital yuan, to be tracked from its digital inception through every single transaction and to which wallet it can be found at any given moment. In short, blockchain-based digital currencies will allow central banks to have a real-time map of absolutely every monetary unit in circulation and every single economic transaction, something they can't do with trillions in anonymous paper money still sloshing around. The inverse process was launched by the ECB when it did away with the notorious 500 banknote, which allowed Europeans to easily circumvent Europe's negative interest rates. And of course, when push comes to shove, central banks will also be able to, quote, warn the public the digital money in their digital wallets may soon expire, sparking an inflationary flood of spending with the flick of a switch. That's one of the reasons why people will probably stay away from CBDCs and use Monero instead, because Monero doesn't have that capability. Let's check some of the comments here. Dickweed Wang says, it's all about control. The virus is just an excuse. They're not going to be happy until every dollar you earn or spend is tracked. Every place you go is noted, and every communication you send or receive is recorded. Zeitgeist Nomads responds, it will be so useful too. The government can just take your taxes every month, week, day you get paid. No need for those pesky tax returns, and they can take whatever and however much they like. Get a speeding fine or a parking ticket? Maybe you use a toll road. Don't worry. Your digital wallet is on your phone, and it is tied to your car's registration, so they know it was you in the car. Money gone straight away. Oops. Sorry, the economy is tipped over, and we're going to have to bail in our friends in the banks. You won't mind if we help ourselves. The economy is still slow. We're going to have to make interest rates even less, so you better spend your money even faster, or the banks will have to pay themselves a bonus to spend it for you. Yay for the CBDCs. Yeah, there's very, very real concerns here. I mean, this is why Bitcoin has a limited issuance and has an interval by which it's issued. The voice in your head says almost every recorded racist statement by Joe Biden, and we're not going to get into that. 3 Lockbox says, Fonzie says, exactamundo, never comply. Don't accept their worthless digits. 371.25 grams of silver, nothing more, nothing less. The law, U.S. Coinage Act of 1972, of February 2nd, 1972, or 1792 rather, defines the dollar as 371.25 grams of pure silver. This is a weight, nothing more, nothing less. A true dollar is an exact amount of silver by weight. A troy ounce is exactly 480 grains, thus a dollar is 375, or is 371.25 grams over 480, or 0.7734 troy ounces of silver. David Morgan. That'd be like the great-granddad or great-great-granddad of anybody in the Morgan family, as in Morgan Stanley. Continuing, or J.P. Morgan for that matter. B. Shirley 1968 said, if I had to guess the number one motive behind this scamdemic, this would be it. Destruction of independence is the submarine motive behind the NWO, globalist collectivist bastards. They cannot stand you being independent and making independent decisions based on independent thought. They control every aspect of the lives of billions of people. Tyler, you're an idiot to ramble on about, quote, an attempt to spark inflation. Why do they give ass about inflation when they can just print and plug the holes at whim? This is about control, period. Walmart and Amazon are about removing choice and independence. Not entirely true. If you look into Amazon, there have been businesses that have built themselves from within Amazon. Continuing on. Doing away with gold and silver as money was about removing choice and independence. Digital money will be the final nail in the coffin of choice and independence. Not true at all. Oh, you'll have choices, like the choices we've had since Obama ran for office and won. You will get the menu they provide. Try stepping off the provided menu and you will be crushed. Don't wear a mask, won't be vaccinated, no Republic credits for you. Oh, and it's so laughable for all the crypto nerds who thought they were blazing a new trail of freedom when in fact they were the beta test for the ultimate control of Prison Planet. If you can't see what I'm saying at this point, you probably never will. America is dead. Long live America. Revelation, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and blah, and then blah, 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 to get a mark on their hand or foreheads, and no man might buy or sell, save he had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Not about inflation, it's all about control. Yeah, I will say it is about control, but here's the thing. We don't have to use their currency. And this is a point that I think a lot of people miss about all of this, is that you are a participant in all of this. If you're wearing a mask everywhere, you're deciding to do that. You are a participant. And it's the same thing with this CBDC bullshit. If it ever came down to it, where they were saying, "Hey, you gotta pay for everything in CBDCs," and they said that to the local grocers and stuff that you're doing commerce with, they will probably tell them to fuck themselves. Meaning they will still accept paper notes because, well, that's the law of the land. And they will accept cryptocurrencies because when they're looking at their taxes and they're seeing all the money that the fucking government is stealing from them via CBDCs, or at least the banks that are running the CBDCs are stealing from them, they'll be like, fuck that. I'm not going to use this shit. I'm going to use Dogecoin because the bank can't fucking gank my monetary value out from under me like they can with this bullshit CBDC bullshit. Anyway, yeah, I think that people just misunderstand technology and what it has done to our lives, as far as like enhancing our capabilities, our individual capabilities. I think they completely misunderstand this. I mean, right now I've got a computer on my desk that is more powerful than a 1980s warehouse full of mainframes. I'm doing like 8 billion things on it at once, and the reason that's even possible is we've evolved, in our capabilities over time. We've made things smaller, we made things faster, we made things smaller, we made things faster, more efficient. And now with cryptocurrencies, we've actually incentivized this process where we are incentivizing NVIDIA. Hey man, make faster, better video cards because we will buy those and we will mine with them. And some people may bristle at that fact, that they like playing video games and they want the video cards for playing video games. And you know what? I'm sorry, man. You guys were just too slow in buying them up. We looked around and we saw these video cards that were kicking the shit out of our CPUs as far as performance on a very limited spectrum of duties. And we're like, well, you know what? We can apply that to mining. And so here we are. But again, everything in crypto happens out of choice. And that's one of the things that this guy kind of miscalled, where he's saying that we're basically beta testing or beta running the future prison frameworks. And there's a problem with that idea, is that all of this shit is open source. All of this shit is replicable, meaning we can fork it all at any time. And so this idea that you're going to clamp everybody to one particular currency and you're going to make them use your currency, it's just silliness. It's only a matter of time before your abuse of the market that this has enabled you to do, that this capability will allow you to do, will only be endured for so long. And then people will divest themselves of your currency units and use something that you cannot take from them. Use something that you cannot tax them on. Use something that you cannot monitor, are not tracking. And so that's one of the reasons why I got into privacy coins back when they first came around, is because I understood that at some point or another we were going to come to this. That these motherfuckers, and they're wanting to tax and track every single transaction you perform, the necessity of denying them your identity would be eventual. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. I'm not sure where I want to go though. We didn't get in any Slipknot last time. I think that would be pretty cool, huh? Some Slipknot. Let's try something. I'm thinking something new, but I'm not really familiar enough with their newer album. I'm gonna have to listen to it a few thousand times. Here we go. Pulse of the Maggots. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Helmet with Like I Care. Yeah. And so, got a few other things to get into before we close it out for the evening. Yeah. My apologies there. Got this one thing here. It's on forecast.news. U.S. regulators are finally lining up over digital assets. And this is by Jackson Mueller. It was authored October 9th, 2020. Yeah. So yes, penis. Fall, a season that welcomes pumpkin spice lattes, the National Football League, peak leaf forecasts, and regulatory coordination. Indeed, participants in the digital asset space, in particular, have witnessed a flurry of regulatory activity within the past several weeks from federal and state agencies whose latest actions contribute to the development and legitimization of the blockchain industry. While several significant actions have been undertaken or brought forth on an individual or agency-by-agency basis, the season has also brought with it a renewed effort, if not continued interest, in intragovernmental coordination over regulating digital assets, and all of it will be for naught. Recently, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency published an interpretive letter providing clarity to national banks and Federal Savings Association's authority to hold reserves on behalf of their customers that issue stablecoins. At the time of the announcement, the Securities and Exchange Commission's Strategic Hub for Innovation and Financial Technology published a statement on the OCC's interpretation, stating its belief that market participants may, quote, structure and sell a digital asset in such a way that it does not constitute a security and implicate the registration, reporting, and other requirements of the federal securities laws. Dude, that is so fucking dangerous, because what's going to end up happening is banks are going to create fictitious customer accounts and then give them some sort of money or whatever that will issue stable coins that will get circulated in some sort of cryptocurrency exchange or whatever. And yeah, you can see where that goes. The coordination letter and statement were followed separately by the SEC's Division of Trading and Markets, issuing a no-action letter to the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, providing further guidance regarding the role of alternative trading systems in the settlement of digital assets. The no-action letter was specified a three-step process for broker-dealers that operate an alternative trading system that trades digital asset securities to follow. Similarly, at the first of 3 Empower Innovation events put together by Commodity Futures Trading Commission Chairman Heath Tarbert, mentioned the agency's interest in having an open dialogue with the SEC, noting that the CFTC's strategic plan includes working closely with the SEC to, whenever possible, make regulations of digital assets consistent if there is overlap. There is no question that regulatory coordination is imperative at a time when finance is increasingly turning digital and where previously held distinctions, industry silos, and geographic boundaries are either converging or collapsing. In 2014, at the launch of the Milken Institute FinTech program, co-authors Chris Broomer and Daniel Gorfine identified several, quote, disruptive characteristics of financial technology, including their borderless nature and potential to propel industry convergence. These remain even more true today. Ongoing developments in the payment space perfectly embody the disruptive characteristics identified in the above-mentioned report. Today, the very nature of what payment a payment is, what form it takes, and the medium used to conduct a transaction continue to evolve, and previously held distinctions are converging. We are far beyond the use of cash, check, or card to conduct transactions. When one considers the bridging of traditional investment assets as payments, the launch of Libra, MasterCard's launch of a CBDC testing platform, PayPal offering direct sales of cryptocurrency, or the intersection and interaction between digital dollar stablecoin and other digital assets, what a payment looks like and how it is transacted continues to morph, blurring previously held regulatory distinctions and militating around regulatory coordination in the complex and fragmented mesh of state and federal regulations. A Government Accountability Office (GAO) report published in 2016 highlights this complexity and the vast expanse that is our financial regulatory system. It is a system that is increasingly challenged to respond rapidly to the continued evolution of our financial services ecosystem. It is a system in which the combination of overlapping jurisdictional interests, the new digital assets technology has clouded the lines of how certain firms or activities are treated and, in some cases, created significant confusion as to who has the primary regulatory purview. That would be the creator and the miners of the coin or project in question. It is a system in which state and federal regulators continue their long-standing jurisdictional power struggle. No, it isn't. It is also a system that, for all its flaws, has contributed to a vibrant, competitive, and rich financial services ecosystem that houses the world's largest and most robust economy. And it is a system that will likely remain in place for the foreseeable future. Actually, we're seeing the disintegration of it. The introduction of cryptocurrencies has kind of like guaranteed that less efficient systems will go away. Continuing on. Ripping up and starting over simply is not an option anymore. We are nearly a century beyond that opportunity. What is needed, especially at a time when the financial services industry is undergoing profound changes by actors from within and outside traditional boundaries, and where blurred lines are becoming, for lack of a better word, blurrier, is even greater exertion on the part of federal and state regulators to coordinate and collaborate on areas where overlapping frameworks make it extremely difficult for industry and to responsibly function, innovate, and grow. We don't care about responsible at this point. Responsible means functional. If your shit doesn't work, or if it doesn't work right, or it doesn't work the way you say it does, you're going to lose customers. You're going to lose a user base. That's all there is to that. Yesterday's regulatory turf battles are today's opportunity to join together to unlock U.S. innovation from the bonds of regulatory uncertainty over digital assets and drive U.S.-based standards internationally. Yeah, basically this guy is calling for the U.S. to set up some standards and try to get the rest of the world to comply with them. The problem with that is that these currencies are not controlled by the U.S. government. They're not controlled by FINRA. They're not controlled by CFTC. They're not controlled by NASA. They're not controlled by any of them. And so this assumption that you're going to be able to erect some regulatory boundaries and they're just going to fucking apply, man. We're gonna throw millions of people in jail just because we said this stupid thing was the right way to go about it. Well, the problem with that is invariably you're going to end up netting up your own kids because they are involved in this shit. And they're going to spend years and years and years in prison because you were a stupid, greedy prick. Continuing on. Recent announcements and statements once again demonstrate regulators' interests in joining together where appropriate to provide for greater clarity and regulatory certainty for the digital assets world. Technological innovations will continue to bring to the surface new and old regulatory challenges as firms and the products themselves transform and further stretch or make obsolete the siloed regulatory structures upon which our current system is based. Collaboration is key. No, the market is going to determine this stuff for itself. Government's going to have very, very little to do with it. Continuing. As the seasons change, will the regulators' appetite for further collaboration change with it? It appears so. With Thanksgiving not far away, we leave you with that tasty metaphor. The issues were further examined in recent webinar, Two Sides of the American Coin, Innovation and Regulation of Digital Assets. Yeah, whatever, dude. These guys are cribbing me. I really disagree with this guy. The fact of the matter is that crypto exists because of the complacency and the laziness of our regulators and our governments and the banks. They've wanted for a system whereby they can track everything and, keep everything under control and whatever, and, kill certain people and make sure certain people get ahead and so on and so forth. And, that's all well and good in like a political sense, but what is it doing to the economy or the ecology? A lot of times things aren't happening because it's not ecologically viable. And people aren't willing to support it with their money. And it's where I keep talking about, that these currencies that banks want to impose on us, these CBDCs, and these regulations that these governing entities want to impose on us. regulatory clarity, when you hear people say those two words together, what they're talking about is eliminating things like public ad hoc networks, such as the one that Bitcoin is Bitcoin's network. And the likelihood of that is as good as it was 10 years ago, which is zero. You know, if enough people are interested in it, there will be a network. And if there are enough people interested in it, there will be a market. And if there are enough people interested in it, there will be an economy. And there isn't anything anybody can fucking do about it. And because these projects are global in span and reach, it's not really in anybody's interest to do anything about them. And this is a point that we keep coming to again and again and again and again. And we're going to come up to it again continually. As long as there's this struggle, this ideal still in people's mind that they can point at you and say, you will only do business in US dollars. You will only do business in Fed coin. You will only do business in MasterCard coin or Visa coin. And this is a fantasy. This is an illusion. It has been proven to be such again and again and again. You know, it's like the Chinese government, they've wanted to control cryptocurrency, but they can't. Because as soon as they start pressing control, they find out their own kids are involved in the shit. And then they're like, oh, well, you know, maybe putting my kid in the pokey for the next 20 years isn't really such a good idea after all. Because he happens to be earning enough money to keep us out of poverty and, you know, make my re-election campaign that much easier. And this is it's reality. And it doesn't matter where we're talking about. We could be talking about France. We could be talking about the US. We could be talking about Argentina. It doesn't matter. It's the same thing over and over and over again. And it's why these people are talking about trying to get some sort of regulatory unity. It's because between all of them, they continually run up to the same fucking problem. That their kids are human. They are human. You know, the people that are involved in the CFTC and the OCC and the SEC, they're all human. And because they've pursued their interests in crypto, they're looking at it and saying, do I really want to put myself in prison? No. And so again, like I said, we're going to be here another 5 years from now. And of course, they'll have said something about taxation that they might be able to apply in one place or another. But for the most part, the same discussion is going to be going on, except the percentage of people that have started using cryptocurrencies will have gone up. The percentage of people that are actually participating in mining and developing will have gone up. At least as far as I can tell. I'm just extrapolating my own bias, my own perspective here, and I think because technology is allowing more freedom, that more freedom will exist. You can't have both. Can't have both. If you have better monitoring and better capabilities in your technology, that will eventually make it down to the market, and then the market will have better capabilities. And it doesn't matter if the market develops at first or not. It will eventually be in the market. And the freedom that it enables will itself, again, be disseminated down to the public. But in this case, where the public is actually disseminating it, and these regulators are pointing at it and saying, hey, we regulate that. And the code is saying, I don't know who you are, dude, or do you want to buy some Dogecoin or not? You know, it's like it's apolitical in that nature. It's like, hey man, if you want to participate, here it is. If you don't want to participate, go fuck yourself. You know, go do something else. And I mean, I know that it seems kind of unrealistic that such a brash attitude will be able to be held in the future. And I've got news for you. I think it'll get even more brash than that. That people will understand the power that these currencies enable them to have. You know, we've already been through one alt bloom, and I believe that there will be another. That people will look at Bitcoin and see the expectations that Satoshi and those that were working with him had, and what they were saying about the cryptocurrency at that point, and contrasting it with their current experience and saying, hey, why isn't it doing that? It could do that? Why aren't we currently doing that with it? And you'll say to yourself, you know, I can code. I know how to code a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and clone the code of the original Bitcoin, fork it, and edit just a couple little things that I think it needs instead. And I'll hash my Genesis block and disseminate it out to the public. And it really is that simple. You know, that's how all this shit started. And I believe that because the threshold, the requirements for getting into it were so low that it's completely inevitable that it'll continue to happen until we actually get it. You know, and so I don't suffer any like depression or anything when I hear about this regulatory bullshit, because I know that the only function of the regulation is to try and keep certain entities out of the market. And because the possibilities for you to participate are so numerous in cryptocurrency, man, there's people out there that want you to fucking code for them, that are willing to pay you to code for them. And that being the case, hey, you just have to have a brain. You just have to have a pair of hands that you can type with. You got to be able to understand code. And again, the capabilities for learning that information has never been easier. You can go online, go over to YouTube, and find all kinds of tutorials for everything, man. How to set up miners, how to code, all of that shit is there. And I think that the necessity is what is kind of holding people back from wanting to participate in cryptocurrencies, is that, you know, their money works just fine right now. But, you know, you've got these regulators and you've got these central banks in the background talking about, we're going to make a CBDC and we're going to make everybody transact in it. Hey, you know what? When that shit starts coming down the pike and they start implementing that and start paying you in it and start expecting you to buy and sell things in it, and then they start applying their capital controls via it, the necessity for things like cryptocurrencies is going to go way up in people's lives. And I strongly doubt that if they will ever go away. They'll probably still be live at the time that it happens. And people will be making that conscious choice that those of us that signed on way back in the day were looking at as attractive traits for them. Immutability, permissionlessness. Yeah. Anyway, I have this thing here. It's on Coindesk.com. Lightning vulnerability discovered. LND node operators urged to upgrade ASAP. This is on October 9th, 2020 at 0058 UTC. And this is by William Foxley. So yes, penis. A vulnerability in LND versions 0.10.x and below has been disclosed to the Lightning Labs team, according to engineer Connor Fromnecht in the Lightning Network Developer channel Thursday. In light of the disclosure, the firm is urging node operators to upgrade to versions 0.11.0 or higher as soon as possible. And this fucker did it via bullet points. I hate these bullet point articles, man. No. Exploits of the vulnerability have been found to date, but, quote, circumstances surrounding the discovery resulted in a compressed disclosure timeline, Fromnecht said. The vulnerability was partially disclosed with a detailed publishing of the findings promised October 20th. Lightning Labs, one of 3 major implementations of the Lightning Network, released its newest v0.11.1 beta on October 1st. Lightning Labs did not respond immediately to a request for comment. Interesting. Yeah, I don't put any faith in the Lightning Network or anything external layers or any of that bullshit. I don't. And the reason being is that those transactions, that transactive activity, it requires on-chain transactions. No matter what, it requires on-chain transactions. And those have on-chain transaction fees. And if you are not paying them, then somebody else is. And if somebody else is, that someone can say, no, I don't want to pay your transaction fee. You suck. I hate you. You won't wear a mask. You won't get a vaccination. You won't let us put this rivet in you. And so again, that's with that presented as the alternative. I think it's more likely that people are just going to switch to cryptocurrencies instead. They're going to be like, fuck you, I don't have to get a rivet to use Bitcoin Cash. Yeah, so we read through that thing, we covered that thing. I think we got it pretty much sewn up. I mean, I could cover that, but that's like that framework thing that we covered the other day. And I don't know if we covered this one or not. I don't think... no, we did. Menge-san. And this was October 6, 2020. I think we probably covered this already. And why not? This is actually in reference to what we were talking about earlier with regulators helping banks embrace cryptocurrency, i.e. letting them take custody of or hold custody of your crypto assets. Why you would want to give them to your bank, I don't know, but somebody might want to do that. Anyway, let's go with this. And this is by Menge-san. It was October 6, 2020 at 5:30 a.m. Eastern Time. The Office of the Comptroller of the Currency is hoping more regulatory guidance will help traditional banks warm up to cryptocurrency. Actually, we did read this. I can recall it now. Yeah, I think that... I think in the longer term, these guys are just going to give up. I mean, they may transact our crypto for us, and they may even get to where they're willing to do exchanges for us. Where you've got a volume of currency in your or monetary value in your account, and say it was denominated in US dollars when you deposited it, but you want to withdraw it as something else. Your banks being able to say yes to that would be really interesting. But then again, they would have to have actual custody of volumes of the cryptocurrency in question, which it seems that there are more firms taking that on. I think Square just bought like $50 million worth of Bitcoin or something like that. And so, the idea that some entities will be able to do that, yeah, sure. But whether they will have hundreds and hundreds of cryptocurrencies or volumes of hundreds of cryptocurrencies is a little bit dubious. But yeah, I think that if we're not talking about off-chain transactions, there really isn't a whole lot of use for entities like Visa and MasterCard and the Federal Reserve even bothering to get into cryptocurrency. They should worry about being banks, not worrying about trying to regulate something that the public created to counter their effects. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down with some music. And I'm wanting some Fear Factory. I've been wanting to play Fear Factory for a while, and just haven't gotten around to it. So here it is, Controlled Demolition, here on Coin Metal. And that was Death Angel with Seemingly Endless Time. And I was going to let it continue on, but unfortunately, we've come up to the end for the evening. But we will be back again on Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I'd like y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And so, as far as our last dance is concerned, as per normal, I have not picked anything out. And I'm still in the process of doing that right now. But I had wanted to play some Clutch. And I think we can get that in. Let me see if I can find the right song, though. Not that one. This one right here. How to Shake Hands by Clutch. Last dance here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening.